So you've decided to get a reserve study. You've been convinced it would be good to learn the condition of your property and get an answer to the question about how much you need to set aside to fund reserves. Great. But now what happens? And that's the key question we answer in our Breaking Down the Reserve Study Process webinar. While we prepare thousands of reserve studies for clients each year, we appreciate that this might be your first time, or maybe it's been a while. Some clients do choose a do-it-yourself option, but it's generally in your best interests and your association's best interests to hire an experienced, independent professional rather than tackling this project yourself. Join us as we walk you through what to look out for when choosing the right reserve study provider.
Well, thank you, Paige, and hello, all you hardworking managers and board members. We're here because you've decided or you've been convinced to get a reserve study for your association. For most of you, you've indicated that this is either something you've never done or done very infrequently. So the question is, what do you do? What's going to happen? Well, follow along as we guide you through a journey to getting that reserve study into your hands, eliminating any mysteries about the process that's involved, and clearing the path for you to get a quality product that provides your association with sound guidance. That's success. Now, we're preparing this program partially because of my recollection being a space nut from long ago and remembering the story about Alan Shepard, the first American astronaut. He's sitting there in his Mercury capsule waiting for launch. That had a lot of delays and obviously a lot of pressure from a lot of different angles. And he's looking out his tiny little porthole, and all he can see is the launch tower, that service structure that's right next to the rocket. And seconds before the launch, that service structure fell away right on schedule, but he reported later that it was very unsettling. He didn't know if the rocket had fallen over or if the service structure had fallen. And that's what we want to do here today. Tell you what's going on so there's nothing in the process that you find unsettling. We want you to be comfortable with all the steps along the way. Well, this is the outline that we're going to follow for today's program, taking you through the issues that will get you familiar with the reserve study process. There is no reason to be surprised. Reserve studies are prepared every year in every state, no matter the legislation, because every year board members in every association ask that same question: what do we need to do now to care for our property? And for those of us preparing reserve studies, even though everyone has its own little twists and turns, the process itself is very familiar and repeatable. We know what we're doing. We go through the steps. And that's why we're presenting this webinar, so your first reserve study project will go as smoothly as your 5th or as your 10th. We want to get you ready for that. So let's think about what you're trying to accomplish. Protecting, preserving, and enhancing the assets of the association. Remember, those assets are both physical assets and financial assets. The financial assets, the biggest financial assets you have are typically your reserve funds. And the key concept here is sustainability. What's it going to take to keep the association well maintained, safe, and with maximized real estate values? And that's going to be a big ask for you, because considering you board members and the managers who've joined us today, you're all volunteers. And the managers already have a full plate of the administrative work that they do. So the board members, you're the only ones who can make the decisions to guide the association. And you make those decisions allowing the other professionals to do their job. The managers managing, the painters painting the siding, the roofers fixing the roof, and the attorney revising the governing documents. They all play their role. It's your job to be the quarterback and hand off. So one of the first things to consider is who's going to prepare the reserve study. And I'm going to suggest that there's some very strong reasons to consider a professional, someone experienced in the field. So just like you'd consider a community association attorney for your association's legal matters, updating your governing documents or things along those lines, or a painter for your pool fence or your perimeter fence, you're going to want to consider a reserve study professional. Those people spend their entire professional careers preparing reserve studies, guiding their clients safely and successfully into the future. You, as a board member or manager, have no obligation, and you don't have the training to take on this task. So consider hiring a professional so you get it right. And remember, reserve funding is often in the range of 25% of an association's total budget. So it's worth having a professional guide you to make sure you're set up to have the funds you need to maintain the property, maximizing property values, and avoiding special assessments. So you're going to get the experience, the expertise, liability protection, because this is what they do. They've got insurance. You're able to hand off to someone who has a stated knowledge of doing what they want to do. And let me show you that fourth bullet point, something that often people don't think about, and that's the homeowner buy-in. We're dealing with major budget projects here. And if the homeowners are thinking that it's not really going to matter because it was just the committee who came up with it, or some person who was working on the reserve study all by themselves, how much can we trust their results? Why should we change our budget just because they say we need to? So I'm talking about gravitas here, credibility. If you are concerned that the work you do in-house is not going to have the homeowner buy-in that you need, that's another big trigger for getting an outside reserve study, a professional involved. So what do you look for? Well, you look for, number one, a reserve study firm or a department within a different type of company that does reserve studies. And volume of experience, look for tens or hundreds per year. The minimum number of reserve studies to maintain your reserve specialist or PRA credential is 10 per year. So you should be looking for someone who's doing much more than the minimum, someone who is really a regular producer of reserve studies. That credential, like I mentioned, RS stands for Reserve Specialist, PRA stands for Professional Reserve Analyst. They're pretty much the same thing, but that's what you want to look for. That's an individual certification, not a company certification. And look for independence. With any financial matter, any legal matter, you want someone who's not stuck with a conflict of interest, who owns property at the association, who has an ongoing business relationship with the association. And that's part of updated National Reserve Study standards. They're going to be out in May or the middle of 2023. They're going to stress independence because, indeed, you don't want someone with a conflict of interest, someone who is already embroiled with the association in some way or another. You want someone who can stand back and from arm's length say, this is what the matters are, this is what the issues are, and this is what you guys need to do. And that's a new thing for 2023. Okay. Also, who to select. Okay. We talked about the kind of things to look for. Now it gets into your preference type things. Consider cost, turnaround time, and sometimes those two, often, those two are interrelated. You may be able to get a lower cost for a longer turnaround time, or on the opposite way, higher cost for a rush turnaround time. Look for the readability of their sample product. Look for references or referrals. What does your manager have to say? Who have they commonly worked with? Who did you meet at a trade show somewhere? And contact them. Email them, phone call them, find out what their customer service is like, because it may not matter when you have days or weeks to get a proposal, but it's going to matter when you're a day or two before your meeting, you have a couple of questions regarding the completed reserve study, and you want or need an answer back. So check on their customer service, what their typical response is, and then additional features. And I'll talk about additional features later on. It may be software, it may be meeting attendance, things like that. But there's a lot of factors involved. And just to help you with expectations, many people fear that a reserve study is going to be too expensive. And I want to suggest that it's just part of those things that it costs to run an association. And besides, the cost typically is under 1% of the association's annual budget. Larger associations have larger reserve study costs, but amazingly, it all usually ends up working out to be under 1% of the annual budget. And if you're getting an update reserve study, that's going to be significantly less. Update reserve studies are less expensive than the first time. And expect a fixed price engagement. Whatever turnaround time you select, there should not be any add-ons. It should be whatever fee has been quoted. Turnaround time, again, that's typically weeks, and it may be interrelated to cost, but look for what they can do. Ask for, are they typically turning it around in 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 16 weeks? What's their normal? What are they offering? Because you need that reserve study because of its results. You don't care, I say that carefully, you don't care about the process. What you need is that finished reserve study. And when you have your budget meeting, it needs to be done in time. And remember that a reserve study is that budget and cash flow evaluation. It's for the purpose of helping you set your association up for success for the next year. It's not a structural evaluation. And that's a type of product which is necessary for your association, typically every 5 to 10 years. And let me go down that path just a little bit. This is a chart that we've presented before, and I'll include it in the outline that Paige mentioned earlier that we'll send for everyone who completes the end of session survey. But look at all the differences here. There's different credentials. There's different conclusions. In a reserve study, we're going to talk about the lobby remodel, carpet replacement, other things that may the signage replacement, things that are someone might call cosmetic, but they are real hard costs at the association, and those just don't get looked at in the structural evaluation. We look at things that are painted, but we're not looking at the structure and the contents. Engineering is controlled by engineering or architectural standards, and we're controlled by National Reserve Study standards. Like I mentioned, the cyclical projects are included in a reserve study. They're not. Destructive testing is typically included in a structural evaluation. These last two are the big ones. Frequency for a structural evaluation is every 5 or 10 years, somewhere in that range. A reserve study, because of all the factors changing, and it's a budget tool, needs to be updated across the country every 1 to 5 years. The sweet spot is every 3rd year for a with-site visit update, and that's new in 2022 for the best practices. And the cost, there's a big difference there. Typically, an engineering or architectural report is 10 times that of a reserve study. And as I indicated, reserve study is commonly in the 1% range or less. Now, every once in a while through this presentation, I'm going to have a slide like this that talks about it being a pro tip. And here's some insights. Due and payable upon delivery. Whoever prepares your reserve study is like a professional who has completed their work. They are not waiting for you to approve it. And so they will send you a bill upon delivery. And you see the bananas here. Those are bananas that are past prime. A reserve study, as I've said, is a budget and cash flow analysis. It's prepared for your upcoming budget year. So it gets old, it gets stale. You're going to need to do it again at least every 3 years because of all the physical changes at your property, financial changes at your property, and the economic environment that we live in. Who knows what the specific interest and inflation rates are going to be in 3 years? That's why you need to do these things regularly. Every 3rd year is now the sweet spot. And terms, look for this in the engagement that you sign. Look for the turnaround time. Typically, the fee is 50% down deposit and 50% upon completion. And look for the number of free revisions. There may be some softness in this number, so make sure you have a correct understanding and see what their aftermarket extras are. A live or video explanation of results, or maybe a meeting attendance. See what they offer. You want to make sure you have appropriate expectations at the beginning.
At Association Reserves, we make the present less stressful and the future more secure. If you want to join us in this mission, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment down below on what you'd like to see us address in a future video. Let's plan for your best future.